You know, it's interesting when we think about what inspires us. I'm sure you think about this song and think, oh, yeah, the world is one, peace in the world, a world that works for everyone. How many of you want that? Okay, everybody's hand, a world that works for everyone. Of course, the question is, how many of you really believe it can happen? All right, good. Because, you know, we may have a vision of something, but usually what we speak, we want, is not quite in alignment what we really vision for ourselves, what we imagine, what we know we can be. You know, we say, oh yeah, I want a world that works for everyone, but I don't really believe it can happen. Because God is infinite, creative, intelligence. And as Susan repeated several times this morning, all that God is, we are an individualized piece of that. So in us is unbelievable potential to be better than we are right now. We're always growing into our next best version of ourselves. And hey, this is a new year. It's time for a new edition, a new version, a new chapter of our lives to open up and become. That's what we're here to do. But here's what T.S. Eliot says. And T.S. Eliot has always been one of my favorite poets. And he says, for last year's words belong to last year. And if we think, there's a little bit more, but if we think about what we've been through for the past few years, it's tough. And our words and our visions and our inspiration, sometimes it's just to hang on, get through. Would you agree with me? It's been tough. But this is a new year. There's new possibilities. And he goes on to say, and next year's words await a new voice. And that new voice, my vision for all of us is this new voice we speak is filled with inspiration. When Susan was sharing this morning, I remembered when our board of trustees got together, gosh, how many years ago? 10 years ago maybe, and we wanted a new name for our community. We were Center for Spiritual Living, Orange County. No, I don't mean that. It's just a bit boring, that's all. It's not bad, it's just a bit boring. Anyway, we said we want something that has more life in it, that's more exciting. We read that direct definition for inspiration. And actually, InSpirit is a word that means to be infused with God, with the divine, and to live like that. And so we said, that's who we want to be. So actually, you're sitting in inspiration. So you just have to be open to it because the universe is communicating with us all the time. We decide the reception we receive. We decide. If we're hanging on like this to what is, if we're hanging on to anger, lack of forgiveness, upset, I'm not good enough, old thoughts, old thinking, if we're hanging on, we can't be open to the greater possibility that's waiting for us. We can't. And so much of that depends on how big is our God? How big is our good? God only wants good for us. And there's nothing in the world more natural for us than to evolve and grow. If we're made of that same energy and essence and potential that happened 14 billion years ago when the material universe was born out of nothing with just a poof, with just a big bang, think of what we can do. We've got that in us. That urge, that surge, that pull for something greater is around all the time. We are either being, and this is what Ernest Holmes says, we are either being pushed or pulled to grow into something greater. Ernest Holmes says, we give intelligence, and I'll say and creative potential, outlet in two ways, just two. One is by pure inspiration and intuition, and the other is by bitter experience, which is way more common, and it's the way most of us use to grow. When you're pulled, well, let me start with pushed. When you're pushed by pain, to grow into something more, to change your ways. It's because, you know, the biggest thing in our life is our problems. Have you ever been there? Are you still there? That's the biggest thing. And that's usually a way we can grow. We can't stand being in the life we're in anymore. It doesn't work for us. And then we're pushed by pain. But too often, instead of stepping into a big God, a big understanding, more faith, we just pray to a small God to fix our big problems. And that only fixes so much of our life. But if we are pulled by inspiration and by vision, then we have a big God. We're filled with faith. It doesn't mean there aren't problems, because there are. But there's a different energy that pulls us into something greater. And that's what we want the inspiration to be this morning. As I said, the simple truth is that none of us will rise higher than the vision we hold of our lives right now. So the most important thing for everyone, is to know how special and important and unique and needed and loved everyone here is. There's nobody that's better or worse than anyone else. Yes, there are people with harder situations right now, maybe a little more to deal with, but your past does not in any way have anything to do with a person, the best that's in you yet to be. That's the choices we make. Pema Chodron said the most important thing in our whole life is to recognize at any moment we can choose, we're a choice, choose to stay in a life of mediocrity, limitation, sameness, limited thinking, or we can step into the truth that we are here to grow and become and be the next best part of ourselves. And that's what I want for all of us right now. I have a story that might help. It's a story I read that I could relate to. It's about a woman, and she wasn't feeling on the top of her game. She was feeling down and stuck, and she felt like inside of her there was a folded sponge, kind of dried and hardened and compressed. She didn't realize at the time that inside that sponge was a message that she'd been seeking. But she acknowledged that. She acknowledged what was in her. She acknowledged the pain. She acknowledged the discomfort. And she felt called to go to the ocean. So she went to the ocean and she walked into the water about waist deep, maybe a little higher. And she could feel the water as it touched that folded, dried up sponge. And it started to become alive. It started to grow and expand. And she could feel it, and she then understood when she saw the bubbles of aliveness coming out of the sponge that that was the secret of life, to be in that flow. And she could feel the aliveness, and then, much to her surprise, a little fish that had been trapped in that sponge, a little fish swam out of the sponge and out into the sea. From that day forward, she could feel that little fish deep in life, in her life. And her life was filled with faith and peace and inspiration. Well, when I read that story, the little fish reminded me of a new idea, something new in our life that comes to us. And we get to decide what to do with that little fish. Now, sometimes new ideas are just flashes of inspiration. How many of you get those little fat flashes that we just let go of? Because they're just good ideas. But they're not ideas we know we're supposed to do something with and build on. And those good ideas, those fish we know we're supposed to put in a bigger container of our mind, so we're supposed to do something with, those are the ideas and thoughts we should take to our prayer time. Because true inspiration and creativity start with our prayer and meditation and going inward. So we go to our prayer time, we ask for guidance, we ask for clarity. We trust that that idea is an idea that's to be born. We have to accept it, believe it, and be patient, because I'm sure you all know you may ask and have a good idea, but you don't get your answers right away. They just don't come, but they will. Have faith. There's a Indian sage whose name is Patanjali, and he said, when you're inspired, and let's just say inspired is during our prayer time, our contemplation time, our meditation, time when we surrender, we may be out in nature and just we lie down in the grass or in the sand or under the trees and we just let go and let God be God as us. He said, when you are inspired by some meaningful purpose, all your thoughts break their bonds. You stop thinking, I can't, and start thinking, well, maybe I can. Oh my gosh, this is possible. Your mind transcends limitations and your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new and wonderful world. When we lost our 15-year-old daughter, and I'd loved teaching. Kirk always said to me, how can anyone love their job as much as you do? I loved my job. I loved kids. I loved possibilities. I couldn't do it anymore. I knew it. And at the idea of an angel store, which I had no business sense at all. I have a master's in education, but nothing in business. But that idea was that flash that came. And I knew it was right. Tara loved angels, and to see that, and I just went, oh, okay. And so I went into prayer. I was in my practitioner studies at the time and went into prayer. And I'll tell you, ways to get a business license, to do all this. Kirk came on, we ordered all our product. We had our store open in less than a year, just because every single thing we needed came to us. Now, a few business classes might have been good to take in the process later. Ding dong. But we did it, and it had its purpose, and it was a wonderful experience. We all have that possibility in us. I'm sure we've all had that time when we've just felt everything was right and good. It's time right now to do that, to see what inspires us in this new year. Meister Eckhart says, God expects but one thing of you, and that is you should come out of yourself and let God be God in you. So I think what I'd like us all, what inspires us, we're going to talk about that now, how to get in touch with what inspires that. Because when you've been stuck for a long time, especially as we have, in all that's been gone, or if there's great pain in our life that's happening, or something we just can't understand, how do we get inspired? How do we get to that place of feeling, breathing in God, as you were saying? How do we feel that when we feel so stuck and hurt and in pain? Well, first of all, the very first thing we have to do is to look deeply into our lives and see what's going on. Are we living the majority of our life asleep, uninspired, in negativity, in apathy, in mediocrity? Is that where we're spending our life? And we just own it. And then, as Maya Angelou says, what does she say? If you don't like something, if you don't like something in your life, change it, right? But what happens if we can't change it? There's a lot of things we can't change right now. Change your attitude about it. So I just say the second step is re-inspire the life you're living. Number one, by infusing kindness in your life. First of all, to yourself. Infuse kindness to yourself. Love yourself. Right now, be kind. Then to the people around you. And then out into the world, inspire kindness. And then ask for what you want. I don't care how close people are to you. They are not going to know everything you want and need. Sorry, you have to ask for what you want. My boyfriend Rumi, my 14th century mystic boyfriend Rumi, said, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. He knew that. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. The door is wide and open. There are people going across the door sill where the two worlds touch. Don't go back to sleep. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. That's what we're supposed to be listening to and feeling. So look deeply at your life first. Re-inspire the life you have. And then we find what inspires us. And as I said, you can go out in nature, Sit in your backyard, feel the sun or the rain or the clouds, whatever the weather is at the time. It's changing quite rapidly right now. But feel, what is it that inspires you, brings you, lifts you? Because inspired people, I'll tell you, does your body feel happier? Or does it function better when it's happy? What happens to your emotions when you feel inspired? It attracts optimism. And because like attracts like, when we're inspired and uplifted, it's going to help other people. It's going to bring people in our life that, we can either help or are here to share the goodness that we feel together, that inspiration. It's good for us. All inspiration comes from God. There's not a single inspired, it all comes from God, whether we know it or not. It doesn't matter. It comes from that place, and we're here to soak it up, to soak it up. Now, I told you this is our Healing Sunday. So we have found that sharing this energy just for a little bit of time during our service is a beautiful thing. We have designated healers. I'd like to invite them up. Barbara, you're going to come up to explain what we do. And if you sit in your seat or if you're up here, it doesn't matter. We're going to, come on up. Universe, we know that energy comes from God's love, and that's what we're here to do. So will you just please repeat after me after we've opened ourselves up? I am free of doubt and fear.
I am free of doubt and fear.
My mind and heart are open. I am available. I'm filled with inspiration. I'm filled with love. I am healed. And so it is. God bless you all. Thank you.